Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tex Messages The Resurrection. We're honored to have you here joining us once again. It's Tuesday evening, March 8th, actually January 8th, 2019. We're broadcasting out of Elk River, Minnesota. We're glad to have you joining us here this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Now lately we've, normally you've heard of us make reference to sponsors and the show sponsors and whatever the case may be. It's simply just an agreement where I go to a location for approximately 8 hours, 5 days a week, and satisfy obligations, and then they sponsor the show. They don't require any sort of advertising or anything beyond that. All I gotta do is show up there for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and then they sponsor the show. It's really a pretty good deal, and then as a result, we have a pretty big budget. Producers work pretty cheaply too. That definitely helps. But before the show today, I'm a little exhausted now because we are going to have a commercial, ladies and gentlemen, sometime in the near future, as suggested by one of the avid viewers of the show. So, we still had to film a couple scenes for it and do editing and all this and that and the other thing. So, it is in the pipeline and it will happen at sometime in the near future, ladies and gentlemen, but it's not going to be tomorrow or tonight or last week or anything like that. So, sometimes you need to be a little bit patient. It's a building process. Rome wasn't built overnight. All those skyscrapers, pyramids, Niagara Falls, it takes layer by layer. And sometimes even the Panama Canal, for example. A lot of people died building these things, ladies and gentlemen. And we're fortunate that nobody's died building Tex Messages The Resurrection, but we will continue to build it. We might only be on the first layer right now. We might be on the last layer too, but hopefully not. That's definitely not the idea and the objective behind standing in front of a camera all day to fail. Failure is not, it could happen, but it's certainly not an option. And we know that to minimize failure, the best option to minimizing failure would be to continue pressing forward and moving forward with the attack, and to never bow down and to continue pressing. Charging the barbed wire is how we like to call it, ladies and gentlemen. So, yeah, we have been filming. It'll probably just be one commercial that we'll air sometime in the near future. I'm excited for it. It's a lot of work, but hey, what you get into something is what you put out of it. So, it should be a good time. Might even be balls deep. Now, we have been changing around the green screen lighting lately. We've got a couple shop LEDs here, a couple LEDs up there, and some walls here and a wall behind us. So hopefully, the last episode we had a bit of an issue with lighting in the corner. There's too many lumens in the corner. Whereas now there is a little bit of shadow that I can see right now. Hopefully it doesn't show up too thoroughly in the frame, but yeah, that's one of the things that we're also working on. Some days you have it right, some days you don't. Now you think, well, you could just leave the shop LEDs in a fixed spot and then it wouldn't be a problem. Which would be absolutely true, but this room has multifarious functionality. Filming commercials and doing some other stuff too, and practicing for some future endeavors that we'll hopefully be able to utilize for the show as well. But we'll see about that. We do have plans for the future. We're not just flying by the seat of our pants. Short term, one day at a time is the motto. Now, does that mean we plan every day out for the next 365 days? Not really. We were just figured we'll try to do as much as we can in a day. Whatever gets done. And whatever will be on to tomorrow, we'll do tomorrow or the day after that. So it's a building process. And it's going to take time, and there's always going to be obstacles as well. One of the risks you incur while building something is that you can hit a destructive path or some natural disaster can come and basically erode and eradicate everything you've made. Think of that customer service deal. It takes 5 years to build a reputation and 5 seconds to sully it. That's sort of like what we're building here at Tex Messages The Resurrection. So we don't want to destroy it, but of course you got to take risks as well. And hey, if it does get destroyed, then you got to build it back up again. and then hopefully you build it back up stronger. Like breaking down muscle proteins. You break them down, you build them up stronger. Pretty straightforward stuff there, ladies and gentlemen. But what we wanted to discuss today, you may or may not have seen it in the news lately, but the new farm bill has allowed the growth of hemp. And this is hemp that's under 0.3% THC, so people aren't going to be smoking to get high. It's hemp used for ropes and buildings, and even the original Model T was used, a derivative of hemp fuel was used to power the original Model T. So hemp is a pretty useful plant, it's a useful product and everything like that. So hopefully a lot of farmers will pick up on it. I'm sure in maybe 5 years we will be talking about how hemp has a deluge of pesticides, fungicides, insecticides and everything, but until then, we'll say it's a decent plant, and maybe I'll even grow some out here, but we'll see. That's future plans, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe just pipe dreamings too as well. But so one of the articles on naturalnews.com was anandamide, how to find bliss without antidepressants. Your brain is not fixed or doomed for Alzheimer's and dementia. It has neuroplasticity. Now, think of it as if somebody loses their arm, which is obviously a horrible tragedy and nobody ever wants that to happen to them. What ends up happening is that their brain has a large allocation for controlling your left arm. All the motor neuron pathways, the nerves, the signals and everything to control your fingers and all that. When you play piano or synthesizers or the organ, you use your left hand and your right hand. When you do a lot of things, you use your left hand and your right hand. So your brain has a tremendous amount of resources that it has dedicated. Now, if your arm gets lopped off, you bleed everywhere, but you somehow survive, and your brain will have all that space to fill up with other functionality. Now, it may just create finer movements in your right hand, it may create finer movements in your big toes, your small toes, or maybe you'll have stronger leg muscles because you'll have better control over them, or maybe your cognitive abilities will increase. But the fact is, the brain is very, very plastic. It doesn't stop growing, or it doesn't stop creating new pathways at any time. That even includes into 100 years old. You can learn things over 100 years old. Yeah, you're not going to learn them as quickly as you did when you're 21, but I mean, you only got one life and it's yours, so you may as well just make the best of it, regardless of age. I mean, people can make a lot of excuses for things: age, time, health. Health is probably the best excuse. Time it's an alright excuse, but age is really just no excuse. So that's mostly why we focus on health here, to eradicate that as an excuse. Time is fixed, you can't do much about that. I mean, you can allocate better planning and everything like that to make it easier. But getting back to the brain plasticity, there was a NASCAR team, he might still be presently employed. Guy didn't have any arms. But he worked on the computer, he worked as a computer-aided drafter and designer. If the crew chief wanted parts made, he made them up. He had a device hooked up to his feet, so he was able to do everything that any normal person could have done on a computer. He didn't have two arms, but he had the brain capacity to very finely control his toes. Most of us, we can't even move our little toe. But this guy could move his little toe just as easy as you could move a pointer finger, because his brain had the neuroplasticity to write that information or control those nerves. Because you got this big giant head up here with a huge brain, and if you take away things that it can do, it'll find other things to do. Now, maybe those will be bad things if you don't make very good choices, but hopefully they'll be things that'll make you great again. So the brain is very plastic, malleable, has a lot of pliability and everything like that. So endocannabinoids are molecules that affect neurons and receptors in the brain. They control your appetite, pain, mood, memories. You are born with these chemicals. Exocannabinoids are in the cannabis plant, and they become synergistic with the endocannabinoids. So basically the exocannabinoids in the cannabis plant are more or less, according to this article at least, that they're working together with the endocannabinoids to ease your mood, to make you feel more at ease and just more relaxed and everything too. Now there's a lot of controversy to that, but the whole gist was CBD oil. A lot of people are claiming that it's absolutely astounding for relieving pain and things of that nature. I mean, I haven't personally used it, so I can't really attest to it. See, most of what I condone on this show are things that I experiment with because I essentially have a magnifying glass for things that contribute to poor health. But as far as something like CBD oil, a lot of people praise it and think that it's all great and everything too. So I mean, it might be something to look at, ladies and gentlemen. And then in these research says that the exocannabinoids in the cannabinoid plants are basically synergistic. You know, they work symbiotically with the endocannabinoids. Now, sometimes you need to be very careful with that kind of stuff, ladies and gentlemen, because when testosterone therapy was first developed, people thought it'd be great because you can have huge muscles and be a real man and everything. But what they found is that when you took more and more testosterone, your body would stop naturally creating it. So if you would get on these 12-month straight cycles of taking testosterone, and then eventually your endocrine system would crash, and when you would no longer take the artificial testosterone, your body would not produce the natural testosterone because it no longer had the wherewithal to do it, or the knowledge to do it, or the system to do it, ultimately shut down. Which is why people would always cycle steroid use, for example, 3 months on, or maybe 3 months on, 6 months off, something like that, so that it can maintain their endocrine system. And that might be, now I'm not saying it's absolutely spot on comparative analysis with the exo and endocannabinoids, but it's certainly something that you may want to be concerned with, ladies and gentlemen. Anandamide is a part of the endocannabinoid system. ECS endocannabinoids discovered in 1992. THC was first discovered in 1964 and was observed to fit perfectly into these special brain receptors. So you're basically putting an artificial chemical in your body that's latching on your brain receptors and giving you that feeling of euphoria or whatever smoking THC or consuming THC does. Now, what they found though is that the cannabinoid was increased not by intaking THC, but by chocolate, CBD oil, and exercise. So I suppose maybe the CBD. Well, I don't know if the CBD oil has any THC. Probably should look into that, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe put it in the comments. But a lot of things that the excess cannabinoid, well, not the excess, but a high level of cannabinoid was it inhibits breast cancer cell proliferation, and it's a biomarker for infertility. So in other words, it's very good for both females and males to utilize or pay close attention to your endocannabinoid consumption. I mean, it controls appetite, pain, mood, and memories. You're born with the chemicals and everything like that, so they are naturally occurring. Now generally, when you have a naturally occurring system, you typically want to consume foods that prohibits or that encourages the body reuptake of it. Like for example, monosodium glutamate imitates some type of brain neuron or brain hormones, which is actually tremendously horrible for you because it creates the inflammation and it just clogs up your receptors. So when you actually want to get things that make you do feel good, the MSG is there to either destroy the receptor or to clog it. Now that's, if you've ever heard of celiac disease, it essentially wipes out your villi in your intestinal system that grabs on all your nutrients, which is why you feel very, very sick if you're gluten sensitive and you eat gluten-containing foods, because all your receptors that grab the vitamins and minerals are completely clogged up. Now, if you start clogging up receptors with THC and all that too, it may not allow it for the naturally occurring endocannabinoids to latch onto those receptors. Now, basically, I'm stumbling over myself a little bit here because the article is more or less directly praising the virtues of CBD oil. And I mean, certainly these websites are great and everything, but to unconditionally follow everything anybody says about something is a very fallacious strategy. So when they use the analysis that CBD oil, creates the exocannabinoids that latches on your receptors and everything too. Certainly an orange flag, or at least a red flag, not a checkered flag, not yet at least. So just I always think about these things from a skeptical standpoint. I question everything is what a great show used to say that was aptly titled Conspiracy Theories. So what I mean, with that being said too, the art of going back, I mean, anytime you talk about marijuana, generally people smoke it that aren't engaged in it, and Smoking is not really a natural way to ingest chemicals. The nasal pathways is used to send signals to your brain, whether you should prepare for the consumption of food or whether you're in an environment with dangerous fumes. Now when you start smoking marijuana and everything getting into your lungs and just directly gets into your bloodstream too, you are getting past those filters. Like for example, when you eat food, yeah, you can eat poisons and die instantly. But at least when you consume foods orally, you're going through a more elaborate filtration system. So the things that are bad are going to get eradicated, or mostly eradicated, and then you will either expel them through vomiting, or through your urine, or through fecal matter. Now when you smoke things, they just get directly in your blood, and maybe they'll hang out in your lungs, and it's not really an ideal form of consuming anything. So smoking is just a very unnatural behavior. Not really sure how it ever got started or whoever thought of it. But sniffing cocaine, for example, sniffing almost goes directly to your brain instantly through the nasal pathway. Now, that you basically don't have any filters, which is why drugs that you sniff are so extremely dangerous and pernicious, because they do have just that direct pathway. Sort of like injecting things as well. You don't have that filtration system. So that's why, ladies and gentlemen, CBD oil, at least you're consuming it orally, so it is going through the filtration systems, and yeah, the whole mimicking of naturally occurring endocannabinoids is I would be very skeptical of it. Yeah, it's going to make people feel great, it'll relieve pain and everything, and if that's what's required to go to sleep at night so that your body can recover, then you maybe in hopes of actually weaning yourself off of the CBD oil, then it might actually be a pretty good it might serve a pretty good functionality. But by and large, trying to take shortcuts in life and working around your naturally occurring body systems, yeah, it feels good short term, but long term it doesn't necessarily always pay off, and sometimes it can end very horribly too. Think of it like a sine wave. You know, your sine wave, there's a DC offset direct current, goes up and down. Well, the AC sine wave goes up and down in a frequency or a cyclical manner. And then you have the DC, which raises the entire wave up or raises the entire wave down. So the short-term gains that you get from ingesting pain-relieving substances, the sine wave is on the upswing. Then you'll start going down quickly. Then you'll take the pain reliever again, and then you'll go back up again. And then you go back down, it wears out, and you go back up again. It's a sine wave that continues in perpetuity. When you continue to rely on those pain relievers or pain suppressants, the DC offset continues to bring you down over time. Now, if you don't rely on pain suppressants, yeah, you might be on the trough of the sine wave, but your DC will stay the same. So eventually, over time, the pain that you experience will be lower than the pain that you would experience if you're taking the pain suppressants for many months or years, because you've offset everything to a more negative level. So sometimes you just need to embrace your pain, and more importantly, listen to it. Yeah, if you trip on the cement and hit your face on a steel rock and you're in severe pain, you know you probably shouldn't have tripped and hit your face on a rock. Or if you slip on the ice and you dislocate your hip, you know that it'd be a good idea to maybe see a chiropractor or some type of physical therapist to help eradicate the situation. So that pain doesn't always have to be a bad thing. It's usually a good communicator as to what's going on in your body. Now, a lot of times, yeah, it may just be something as simple as nerve damage, and maybe you just have to spend more time on an inversion table or eat healthy foods that build strong nerves as well. And a lot of times, even staring at a computer all day, your neck will hurt because you're so docile and sedentary that the nerves in your neck start to pinch each other, and then you start to get headaches. Or if you're staring at the computer screen too long, then all the lights and then sounds and everything hitting your face that your brain has to interpret, it gets a headache from it because it's using an enormous amount of resources just to translate all those lights, and you're not really thinking too hard or thinking too cognitively about what it is that you're doing. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, pain avoidance is, in some cases, it's a smart idea, but sometimes sometimes you need to embrace pain and go through pain to know that it creates growth. But other times too, it's self-inflicted pain for no reason whatsoever. Maybe to be masochistic is not generally a prudent strategy. And then to avoid pain by intaking supplementation that mimics what your body naturally produces. Very skeptical about that. But dark chocolate and exercise, for example, yeah, if those sound like pretty promising strategies as well. Obviously, you won't want to feed it to your animals. Maybe if you got a pet raccoon or a cat or a dog, definitely don't want to feed them chocolate. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you very much for joining us this evening. I'm Rick Tex, the parasite of the show. We're honored to have you here. We salute you and to all a good evening and good night.